President Trump tells ABC News that he's giving Hamas 3 or 4 days to respond to the proposal he unveiled Monday to end the war in Gaza. If they don't sign on, Trump said, it's going to be a very sad end.
While just months ago, Trump said Palestinians would have to leave Gaza. Under this plan, no one will be forced to leave. Going forward, Gaza would be governed by an apolitical Palestinian committee, supervised by an international board of peace led by Trump, and the plan leaving open the possibility of a Palestinian state.
ABC's Mary Bruce. Hamas says it's studying the plan. So far, most state leaders have pushed back on President Trump's National Guard deployments, but one leader is asking for troops.
Not only is Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry okay with a National Guard deployment in his state, he sent a request to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth.
Please send us some troops, and we are going to crack down on violence in the city of New Orleans.
Landry was on Fox News. New Orleans police statistics show a 14% decline in crimes against persons in 2025 and 18% drop in property crimes. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Tropical storm Octave has formed in the Pacific Ocean. The storm's about 930 miles south-southwest of Baja, California. Amazon has unveiled its latest tech lineup that includes the next-generation Kindle, Ring, and Echo devices. Each one is powered by artificial intelligence and connects to Alexa Plus. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Offer not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Honey, the credit card bill came, and we're maxed out.
Maxed out cards, rent is due. We just need some extra cash to help us get by.
Maybe we should go to 27cash.com.
With our bad credit?
27cash.com is one of the largest personal loan networks. They can help people with any type of credit get up to $5,000, and cash can hit our bank account as soon as tomorrow.
When you need extra cash, go to 27cash.com. That's 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
It's now 5:05 on this Tuesday afternoon, and with your local headlines during KBNU's For the People show, I'm Will Feely. Well, the bishop of a congregation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Michigan that was attacked over the weekend has spoken out in a video message that was shared by the church, thanking people for their prayers and love. Bishop Jeffrey Schaub of the Graham Blank Ward said that it was the most significant time of his life where he has felt the love and prayers of other people.
These are the types of situations you don't think you can carry. And I don't think alone any of us can. So outside of the obvious assistance I know that the Lord is providing, I have felt a tremendous outreach. And I feel that love. I know the people around the world are praying for our ward and our families. And I am so grateful for that. It is the most significant time of my life where I have felt the love and prayer of other people.
Now, authorities are continuing to investigate after the gunman rammed his truck into the church meeting house during worship services Sunday morning, opened fire on the congregation, and then set the building ablaze. 4 people were killed. Bishop Schaub said they're returning home late Sunday night. Afterwards, his family found dozens of meals, treats, and notes from community members wanting to try to reach out and help.
It's been very inspiring, the amount of contact we've had with friends, not of our faith. As I returned home late last night, we had dozens of notes and packages and meals and food and treats waiting for us. Members of football teams, baseball teams, basketball teams, music had reached out to make sure that our family was okay.
Now, in addition to those killed, 8 people ages 6 to 78 were injured, including 5 who sustained gunshot wounds, according to police. Now, others suffered smoke inhalation. Meanwhile, the Salt Lake City Police Department said it's going to be increasing security for the church's General Conference that is coming up this weekend, which will, of course, draw tens of thousands of people to downtown Salt Lake City. Now, police officials said that they will be deploying more officers as a safety precaution for the semi-annual event taking place Saturday and Sunday. Sergeant Miles Southworth with the department said that they are preparing extensively for the conference, working closely with church leaders to ensure that the event remains safe. Meanwhile, the Utah Office of Tourism announcing that it is committed to keeping the state's national parks and monuments open and accessible, even if the federal government shuts down at midnight tonight. Now, with Congress facing the deadline to approve a new spending bill, a shutdown appears increasingly likely. The Tourism Office, meanwhile, stated that it is prepared to step in and provide state support as it has during previous funding lapses. Now, the state emphasized the economic importance of the parks, noting that visitors generated over $3.1 billion in economic output in Utah last year. However, the move may be met with reduced services, and a group of former park superintendents have urged the Department of Interior to close the parks during a shutdown, warning that limited staffing does pose risk to both visitors and protected landscapes. Well, we had some rain earlier today, and now we have a chance of some rain again overnight, as temperatures have been in the mid-60s for our high today. We'll warm back up into the mid-70s for tomorrow, as overnight tonight we'll see a chance of some rain, with temperatures dropping into the mid-40s. Sunny skies will continue on Thursday before we'll see another storm coming in on Friday. And weather this hour is brought to you by Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. If you have questions about your insurance, or maybe you're confused about coverages and you need answers, remember Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. Call him today at 752-0101. And I'm Will Feelright. I'll have another check of your local news coming up at the bottom of the hour here on KVNU.
It's been a crazy few months, with big rainstorms fueling the weeds in your lawn, garden, or empty lot, and the spiders coming inside to beat the heat. You need help. Let Logan Extermination take care of those pesky weeds and unwanted pests with an exterior lawn application and interior treatment for bugs. Call Logan Extermination today before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Weed control starts at $45. Interior spider spray starts at $95.
Get your news from KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning will give away 5 free HVAC units to local families in need for 2025. But here's the truth. This year, there were over 60 nominations, so many more families need real help. That's where you can help. Join us at the Feel the Love fundraising dinner, October 13th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Enjoy a night of dueling pianos, a silent auction, raffle prizes, and a delicious dinner, knowing that 100% of all funds raised go directly to helping more families receive free HVAC units in 2026.
Tickets are just $60 per person or $400 for a table of 8.
Get yours now at mountainvalleyhvac.com. Mountain Valley Heating and Air invites you to feel the love at a fundraising dinner October 13th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. A huge thanks to the Riverwoods Conference Center for helping to make this event possible. Let's bring a warm home to more families in need.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. A new episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas is out, and we have a sneak preview for our listeners here at the start of the hour. Also, new options for those who, specifically those who find themselves in a caregiver situation, temporarily or long term, with the launch of some new classes here in Cache Valley. And also, Deon Sanders stirring up some trouble today, but he makes a point worth talking about. After fines were announced for Colorado after anti-LDS chants at a game over the weekend, something that also happened last year when BYU played in Colorado at the same school. Thus, why they took it further. Last year, they condemned it. No fines were issued. This year, $50,000 fine was issued. But Deon Sanders isn't happy about it. He said, not just in this situation, but in general, he doesn't think it's fair for schools and athletic departments to be held accountable for what, quote, some idiot students who are probably drunk and high decide to do, end quote. We'll talk about reaction to Deon's words today, but he makes enough of a point is worth talking about, so we'll do that later on in the hour. On a sad note, we have more information about those killed and injured at the shooting at the LDS Church in Michigan on Sunday. Well, details are still sparse on the investigation. We do know 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford drove his truck into the church Sunday morning and began shooting congregants and then set the building on fire. And as you heard during the news break there from Will with some quips from the press conference and more, they've spoken with the alleged shooter's father. The gunman's father, Tom, said, he's heartbroken for the families affected by what his son has done. Said it's devastated his family as well. What we know about those injured and killed, the first thing we know, this is the part that stuck with me. I read this on Sunday. A Detroit TV station reported this, that the gunman started shooting. So he drove his truck through the wall. People heard that and assumed it a car accident and came running to help. And that's when he started shooting, when they ran to help him. And that just struck me. But what we know, again, is that 4 individuals are deceased, 8 others injured in different levels of seriousness. 8 others, and the age ranges are from 6 to 76 that have been admitted into a nearby hospital. What we do know is that of those injured, it sounds like one was shot by the gunman there on scene. Another later died at the hospital during an attempt at life-saving surgery, and 2 more individuals were found dead due to the fire at the church. It's believed that hundreds were inside at the time the gunman started shooting. And again, FBI calling this an act of targeted violence, which is law enforcement speak for this wasn't random. This person went there because it was an LDS chapel. So that's what we know. It's horrible stuff, but we do also have some additional information. ABC News reporting a couple of different ways that so first off, the church is a total loss. It can't be rebuilt. It burned that badly. And they are also saying that the incendiary devices that the gunman, I don't know if he tossed them out or they were just in the truck or they'd been placed there earlier. That part's pretty unclear in the reporting. But it appears that they were homemade but with skill. And of course, we know this man was a Marine veteran who suffered from PTSD, and so big debate online over a photo of him on a Facebook page in a Trump 2024 shirt, and everybody wants to make this about politics, and I get it to some extent, but put it aside for a second. This is a horrible tragedy, and it's horrible tragedy on top of a horrible tragedy the week before, and the week before that, and the week before that. We've got to do something about the heat out there in our politics. All right. Transitioning away from that now, our listeners each week, again, get a sneak preview of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. And this week, on a related topic, they're talking about the need for dialing the heat down, getting back to civil debate and respecting free speech and encouraging people, not discouraging people, to get civically engaged. Nick Dunn of the Sutherland Institute this week sits down with Celeste Malloy, a representative in Congress from here in Utah for the 2nd Congressional District, to talk about exactly that. How can we dial down the heat, discourage the as Governor Cox calls it, the dopamine hit chasing of social media that's making everyone so angry, or at least contributing to it, and then at the same time encourage especially young people to stay involved. Could be a contradictory goals. Here's a bit of the conversation they had about, again, restoring civil debate without discouraging people from getting involved.
More important than ever, and especially with everything that's been going on in recent weeks and kind of an elevated attention here in Utah and nationally to kind of the way we do politics with each other. It seems really important to get it right.
I think it is, and I don't think we're going to get a lot of do-overs. There's a lot of talk right now about toning down rhetoric and moderating the way we talk to each other and I think it's an important time to be talking about that, because if we don't get it right in the next year or two, I think we might have a hard time rolling it back.
I want to ask, because so often in these kinds of conversations, and this has been a fixture of politics for quite a while now, of, well, we need more civility, we need more dialogue. And I think those things get debated often as some folks are worried that it's a Trojan horse to just go squishy on your principles, or that, well, we just need to agree with each other. When you think of this topic of civil discourse, of more healthy, constructive debate, how do you define it? How do you approach it?
Yeah, it is tricky. And I do politics for a living, and nobody wants to be labeled as a squish in politics. But I think the key is that we don't all have to agree. What we need to do is get better at having the disagreements and defining our ideas, because I think the answer is we can get as passionate as we want about ideas and policies. Where we have to be careful is when it turns personal. And words are not violence, but I do think sometimes the words create almost a permission structure for violence, because we've gotten kind of cavalier about talking about violence. If you go on a social media platform right now and type in the name of any, controversial political figure, you will probably see a lot of posts that call for their death, that call for, violence towards them. And I don't think most of the people who post those things actually want to do anything violent. But if you spend a lot of time on social media and you hear those messages over and over, you might start to get the idea that you could be a hero for committing violence. And where we would be much better off is if all of that passion, all that energy was used to talk about ideas and policies. If you talk about killing a bill, that's really not a problem. Talking about killing a legislator is a problem. And so I think you're right. Sometimes when we talk about toning down the rhetoric, what people hear is we need to stop disagreeing with each other, and we need to just be nice and not talk about the hard things. I think we need to really, really lean into talking about the hard things, but we need to focus on the ideas and not let the hard things conversations turn into personal insults to people.
I want to ask you, in terms of application, because the idea that comes to my mind when you say that, and I agree completely, is that what I would suggest, and I'd love to hear your reaction to this, and if you see this in Congress at all, in some of your interactions with your colleagues back in Washington, the idea is this: is that if we're discussing an issue with somebody and there's a lot of disagreement there, our instinct is to sort of attack the person, say, well, you are wrong on this, or you are a bad person because you have this particular view. And I want to suggest that if we can just, this might sound like just sort of a rhetorical flourish, but I think it's actually substantive. Separate the person from the argument. And instead of saying, well, Congresswoman Malloy, I think you are wrong and you're bad for this or that reason, say, well, I think your argument is wrong. So sort of say, I'm going to attack the argument. I'm going to show respect to the person, but go after arguments aggressively if the argument is bad, and of course make your case. Does that resonate with you as a practitioner of this, and have you seen it in action?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a lawyer before I was a politician, and that's what lawyers are trained to do. It's an adversarial system. But in court, both sides argue to the judge or to the jury. They don't argue with each other. And so you learn that skill, and I wasn't a courtroom lawyer much, but you learn the skill of making an impassioned argument, but it's not necessarily about opposing counsel. It's about the facts and the law. And we need more of that in politics. I just came from an event at the University of Utah where I was talking to students, and I asked them a lot of poll questions, or we asked them a lot of poll questions about where they are on issues and how involved they are. But afterwards, several of them came up to me and asked that question. So you said we need to lean in. You said we need to be more involved. But how do I do that? How do I talk to my uncle who wants to argue politics all the time? Or how do I talk to my classmates who think my side's wrong? And again, it's going to sound maybe like a minor rhetorical difference, but I think it actually matters. And I get chances to practice this all the time. If you say what you believe in absolute terms that don't allow anyone else to have a different opinion, then you're creating that environment. My grandpa used to say that people aren't different than animals. You never want to back one into a corner where their only way out is over the top of you, because that's a good way to get run over. And so if you're saying, I absolutely think we need to cut government spending. And these are the problems with government spending. You can get as excited as you want, but if you start with your side believes this and you're wrong, or your side is evil, or you are ill-intentioned, then they're going to want to come over the top of you. But if you can say, here's my perspective, this is how I see it in my experience, or, from my point of view, it seems like this. You might be objectively right. There may even be data to prove you right, but you've left enough rhetorical space for somebody to say, okay, well, from my point of view, this is how I see it. And you may never agree. You may be right, they may be wrong. It may be a matter of opinion and neither one of you is going to move the other one, but you've created an atmosphere where you can each articulate where you are and still view each other as human beings. And it sounds squishy and Pollyannish, but I do think it's what's missing. Our system is designed for debate. Our founding fathers debated each other all the time. And sometimes they actually did make it personal. And some of them had to apologize later in life and become friends again. But the idea that people can have fiery rhetorical discourse and still live peaceably together in the same state, country, city, neighborhood, that's really important for our American system of government.
And it seems like that's something that we're lacking, that hopefully we can revive. And I want to ask you, we need to go to a break in a couple of minutes, but before we do, this, again, in the context of the various national discussions and efforts about turning down the political temperature in this country, it usually is framed in terms of, well, if you do this, you'll find common ground together. Yeah. And I think largely that's probably true, but I keep asking the question of, what if I can't find common ground? And I want to ask you if maybe you've had experiences, if you're discussing with somebody and at the end of it, we just don't agree on anything. How do you deal with that in such a way that preserves what you just said?
So I don't know that I'm doing everything right, but what I do is just say that. There are a lot of times I have conversations with colleagues, even sometimes with family members, where I say, we're probably never going to agree on this. I lay out where I am, I let them lay out where they are and say, we may never agree. And it's okay to not get to common ground. It's great when we can get to common ground, but there are some things, there's a reason there's more than one political party. If by sitting down and talking, we would all agree on everything, we'd only need one political party. And we could just have, we could be in session one day a year and all sit down and talk it out and come up with the right answer and pass everything. But it is actually healthy to have a variety of opinions and debate. And even within my own party, we disagree on a lot of things. And it's okay to disagree and still be in the same party. If a party's going to grow, we've got to allow people in who don't agree on everything.
That was, again, Congresswoman Celeste Malloy, representative of Utah's 2nd Congressional District, the guest on this week's episode of Sutherland Institute's Defending Ideas. A sneak preview there for our listener, but you can see the entire episode, watch the video, and listen at sutherlandinstitute.org. They talked about policy and things like that, but they spent even more time on this topic, and it was really interesting to hear from an elected official who has experienced threats, death threats, and more, as all elected officials at the federal level sadly have these days. And to hear her talking about having hope that, we can actually round this corner and get away from where we're currently at, that is too often playing out in the headlines around us politically. So, full episode again at sutherlandinstitute.org. If you have thoughts on this week's sneak preview, 753-5868. We'll be back right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Hey business owners, are you frustrated with your workers' comp rates? This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. As an independent auto owners agency, we work with multiple carriers and will give you options. Our experienced agents are ready to answer your questions and help you navigate these options. Let us help you find the workers' comp policy that's right for your business. Call us today, 435-752-0101.
From all of us at Top Job Asphalt, thank you. We've been named the gold winner for asphalt paving and maintenance in the Best of Northern Utah 2025. And it's all thanks to you. You've let us serve you for over 20 years, and we couldn't have done this without you. Thank you so much for your support.
Hear that? That's the sound of a sad bird. He says your trees are so overgrown and ragged, he can't find a place to perch and sing you a happy song. Hear that? That bird is warning you. He says if you don't prune your branches before the next windstorm, they might end up in your living room. Yep, another talking bird. This one says call Hull Tree Care. Smart birds. Call Hull Tree Care and get 10% off. 760-6587. That's 760-6587.
Text from a listener who says you've never really said whether you agree or not with these calls for civility. I explained this once, I think most recently when we had Tammy Pfeiffer here on the show. She's working with Tim Shriver and others through the Dignity Foundation, through the Dignity Index, something that came out of the Shriver Foundation that I'm partial to. So here's my issue with calls for civility. They're oftentimes used by someone who is using it in bad faith. And unfortunately, that gives calls for civility a bad name. It's hard to explain what I'm trying to say there on the fly. I usually have to think these things through, so I say them carefully. There are people who will tut curse words or someone with a raised voice or even a red face, and then use that as the way to get out of being held accountable. And that has, I think, cheapened calls for civility. So I think when people hear calls for civility, it doesn't really mean anything. It's like just white noise, like the adults speaking on a Charlie Brown cartoon. So that's really why I don't like calls for civility. The need for increased civility is very real, though. And the need for people to get away from, I agree with Governor Cox. I think he says partly, I say primarily, social media induced anger. That dopamine hit that he mentions is a real thing. And the algorithms I've seen them, they're designed to keep you scrolling. The whole goal of an algorithm on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or TikTok is to Snap's the only one that doesn't have one, but it works very differently. Snap is a little safer that way as well. But the algorithm is designed 100% to stop you from closing the app for as long as possible so they can advertise to you and make money. So you're being manipulated by these things and by your phone. And I wish more people recognized that and had a problem with it, enough to at least put it away more often. But that said, it's the world we live in, and I don't think a bunch of elected officials sitting around and talking about the need for civility is going to change anything. But I think what we can. I agree with Congresswoman Malloy that some of the things I've seen, some of the things that our lieutenant governor has received in email, some of the things that Republican Senator Todd Weiler, he posts them on Twitter to show people what he gets in his inbox. I've seen them. The death threats. Tina Cannon, current state auditor, when she ran for Congress here in District 1 a few years ago, she showed me here in the studio some of the messages she'd received via text and email and played a voicemail for me that was awful. And my reaction to these every time I see them is, who does this? Well, I mean, the reality is apparently a lot of people. But we've got to address it. I'm not claiming I know what the solution is. And it's probably not one thing. I guarantee it's not one thing. But I know that it's a serious problem that we're dealing with here. A person who is doing nothing more than having an opinion and hosting a popular podcast and video clip show and running a registration organization, voter registration organization called Turning Points, was gunned down in Utah in front of everybody. We all saw it, unfortunately, before many of us knew what the video was really showing us. I mean, an event like that can't happen and not have you pause, not cause you to pause for a second at least and say, what are we doing here? And what can we do about this type of thing? It's looking more likely, my opinion, not anything that's been directly reported, but it looks very likely that this individual who drove into the wall in at the LDS Church in Michigan on Sunday was looking intentionally to shoot and kill members of the LDS faith, which, if you've seen a lot of the rhetoric online right now, especially on Twitter, there are a lot of folks in the furthest right reaches of Twitter right now that are blaming Utah and members of the LDS faith for the actions of the young man who killed Charlie Kirk, allegedly. That's not healthy. And it picks up it's like a snowball rolling downhill. It picks up weight and volume and gets louder and louder and louder. And then the algorithms are throwing more gas on that fire too, because, wow, we can keep all these people here seeing these ads forever. They're so mad. We'll keep them mad. That's literally what's happening on Twitter right now. And I think, that, again, I can't say with certainty, it hasn't been reported, but my opinion, with the facts that have been reported, and the FBI saying this was a targeted act of violence, I think that we will find that gentleman, that man, was intentionally looking to shoot members of the LDS faith, because I would not be surprised to learn at all he'd been spending some time in some of these online forums and social media platforms, and something was already not firing right. Because let's be honest, no person who is standing on both feet and not wobbling a little bit, not to judge those who are wobbling, because any of us can wobble at any time, and if you think you can't, you're a fool. But someone who's not wobbling at all can probably sit in these forums and at a certain point will pull themselves out and say, okay, this is unhealthy and it's gotten weird. I'm going to go outside and touch grass, as the TikTokers say. That's what most people do. But someone who is wobbling a little bit, someone that's having a hard time, someone with maybe some chemical issues going on in their brain even that are causing depression and anxiety, and they expose themselves to a Twitter algorithm that's constantly forcing more extreme things into their feed so that they won't close the app. You can see how someone could be radicalized to the point where, if their common sense is on pause due to some other issue, PTSD or a chemical issue or a traumatic event recently in their life, all these things can set any person off for a bit, make them wobble. And you throw a very angry discussion online happening right now. Again, this is not a big discussion, and it's in the most extreme right wing of Twitter. It's not even in Republican circles. I mean, we're talking way over there where the Groypers and Nick Fuentes are. But they're talking about members of the LDS faith as bad people after the Charlie Kirk shooting. It's nonsensical at all. But my point here again is that someone who's already wobbling a little bit and they step into that, well, the algorithm doesn't know they're having a hard time because of PTSD. It's just going to keep feeding them garbage, more extreme garbage, hoping they don't close the app. And I would not be surprised at all to find out, to get confirmation. I mean, we kind of have confirmation at this point with, again, the FBI saying this was a targeted act of violence. That's what they say because the investigation's ongoing and they don't want to taint future prosecution. But let that soak in to your heads, everyone. I mean, I'm a hypocrite in saying all of this. I have spent way too much time some nights on Twitter or TikTok or even Instagram a couple of times, though fewer times, really enjoying myself because something happened in the political world and everybody was cracking really funny jokes and I was really enjoying it. And then I look up and I'm like, whoa, 2 hours just went by. I'm not immune to it and I'm not pretending to be, but I'm saying you can't look at some of this stuff. I know it's uncomfortable to connect the dots, but we have to. We have to connect these dots and say, this is where we're at. And something's, I mean, we're beyond, I think, asking what caused this. I think at this point what we should be asking when it comes to political violence is what's encouraging it? Those are my thoughts. If you'd like to share yours, 753-5868. And again, if you want to see the full episode with Representative Celeste Malloy of Utah's 2nd Congressional District talking to Sutherland's Nick Dunn about civil debate, political violence, what we do about getting away from where we apparently are at in this country. That full conversation can be seen video at sutherlandinstitute.org, and we'll be back with more of For the People after the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thanks a lot, Jason. A 65-year-old woman died last night in Brigham City from injuries that police believe she sustained after being hit by a car in an apparent hit-and-run incident. Now, the Brigham City Police Department said that officers responded to a report of a person down at the intersection of 850 South, 425 East just before 8 o'clock last night. Now, police found the woman lying in the middle of the road with serious injuries. She was treated by paramedics at the scene and transported to Bridgeland City Community Hospital, where she was later pronounced dead. Now, authorities have not yet released her identity, and an investigation into the death is ongoing. Detectives say they are continuing to try to locate a suspect driver or vehicle. Meanwhile, they're asking anyone that has information about the case to contact law enforcement. Well, as the final month of the campaign season approaches, Logan municipal candidates are working to get out the vote and persuade voters with a combined Meet the Candidates style event that's coming up on Thursday. Now, KVNU's Carter Chatterton has the details.
On Thursday, candidates running for office in Logan City will participate in Let's Talk Logan, a moderated roundtable discussion about the future of the city. Mark Anderson, a current Logan City Council member and candidate for mayor, hopes that the panel will be a good opportunity to learn and share ideas about a variety of Logan's pressing needs.
I really like this format because we can throw a topic out there and maybe nobody has the perfect answer, but we can talk about it and we can throw some different ideas around. Maybe we'll talk about housing. Maybe we'll talk about energy. I mean, there's a ton of different topics we can discuss.
The panel will be made up of the 2 mayoral candidates and the 4 candidates running for Logan City Council.
I think it's a good way to kind of showcase everyone's thought processes and experiences and what they've dealt with in the past. And maybe between the 6 candidates, we can throw some different ideas out there that maybe nobody's talked about.
The event is being held at the Utah Theater Thursday, October 2nd, with doors opening at 6:30 p.m. and the panel starting at 7. For KVNU News, this is Carter Chatterton.
Now, the event will be free and will be broadcast live here on KVNU. And a man was arrested over the weekend after police say he stabbed 2 people outside of a St. George bar moments after he was kicked out for intoxication. Mario Perez, a 22-year-old, faces multiple charges, including aggravated assault, resulting in serious injury following the late Saturday night incident that happened at the one and only bar. Now, according to a police affidavit, Perez had been asked to leave due to his intoxication. He allegedly retrieved a knife from his vehicle, saying that he felt disrespected, and then confronted the 2 people who were outside the front door. Now, he stabbed one victim in the arm, severing an artery that required emergency surgery, and then stabbed the second victim in the clavicle area. Now, Perez resisted arrest when officers arrived, prompting police to use a taser. According to authorities, it appears that Perez has no documentation of being in the country legally. Well, it definitely felt a lot more like fall today, as temperatures were only in the mid-60s for our high with some rain this morning. We still have a chance of some scattered showers and thunderstorms as we head into the overnight hours tonight, as temperatures are going to drop into the mid-40s. Tomorrow, we'll be back to seeing some sunshine with temperatures in the mid-70s. Same forecast for Thursday before another chance of showers comes our way for Friday. And weather this hour is brought to you by Triton Medical Supply and Transportation. They can help get you to and from medical appointments, hospitals, nursing homes. They can also transport medical equipment as well. It's Triton Medical Supply and Transportation. Call them today at 435-557-6687. And I'm Will Feelright with your Tuesday afternoon news headlines.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. Less than 5 hours to go until the budget deadline, and still no deal in sight. The Senate voting tonight down both the Democratic bill that would have reversed medical reductions and other health care cuts, and the so-called Clean Republican bill. President Trump already warning a lot of federal workers may be fired if the government does shut down. J.B. Billard, whose husband's in the Coast Guard, is preparing to tell their kids they're going to have to scale back on things like dinners out and picture day at school.
What do we set as a priority? Your dad's not getting paid right now. That's our sole source of income. I said no because there's bigger things happening here.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth outlining changes to military policy that include raising physical standards for combat positions to, quote, male levels. President Trump this afternoon announcing that drug maker Pfizer's agreed to sell the company's meds through Medicaid at lower prices and announcing Trump RX, a new direct-to-consumer drug plan. This is ABC News.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Daines at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology for an appointment and let them show you how.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
The Morris Columbus Travel Expo is coming to Layton with travel vendors from all over the globe, airlines, cruise lines, resorts, and tour companies, including Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. Join us at this one-day show for exclusive discounts, information, seminars, and hourly prize drawings. Saturday, October 18th at the Davis Conference Center in Layton. Details at utahtravelexpo.com.
Morris Columbus.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Salt Lake Tribune with the story on this, but comments that have been getting a lot of debate online, and I'm going to bring a bit of it to the show here because I think Mr. Deon Sanders, despite the fact that the way he said it and his dismissiveness obviously ruffled feathers, he raises a point that's at least worth talking about, because I've wondered this myself. So some backstory here for those who haven't been following, but the Big 12 League was getting some pressure to get involved, and they finally did with a statement this morning in something that took place at a game Saturday in Boulder, Colorado. BYU traveling down to face off and beat that night the Colorado Buffs, and during the apparently this came from the Colorado student section. It wasn't just a handful of fans here and there throughout the arena where the game was taking place, but from the student section itself at Saturday's football game against BYU, Colorado Buffs, people in the student section on the Colorado Buffs side were shouting, F the Mormons, but not self-censoring. And it was being chanted. It wasn't just a shout here and there. It was an actual chant that they entered into. And this was before they were losing even. So this was, yeah. And then it's worth pointing out, too, this is not the first time this has happened. The same chants occurred when BYU played Arizona in basketball last year. And at the time, the league, last year when this happened, issued a statement. But they were under a lot of pressure this time to take it further. Several elected officials here in Utah had weighed in. Obviously, online, there was a rage storm of BYU fans, just outraged that this happened again, a different game and a different team, or different sport and a different team, but same chant. And they said a statement isn't going to be enough. And so this morning, the Big 12 League got involved officially with a statement and announced a $50,000 fine against the University of Colorado and the team. The statement read, in accordance with the Big 12 Conference principles and standards of sportsmanship, the conference has issued the University of Colorado public reprimand and a $50,000 fine for inappropriate chants that occurred during Saturday's football game against BYU. By the way, this is the first time the league has stepped in with penalties for chants from the student section or anyone in the arena or stadium. And this, again, for the chants that have happened before to BYU on road games. Again, the last one that I could remember, and that's mentioned in the Salt Lake Tribune story here, was this was a big story when it happened. The same chant, F the Mormons, coming from a large group of people repeatedly throughout the game when BYU played Arizona in basketball last year. This was football last Saturday, but in basketball against Arizona last year, the same chant. The Big 12 statement read, hateful and discriminatory language has no home in the Big 12 Conference. While we appreciate Colorado apologizing for the chants, which the school had already done, they apologized Saturday night, actually, after some video was circulated around. They said, we appreciate Colorado apologizing for the chants that occurred in the stands during Saturday's game. The Big 12 maintains zero tolerance for such behavior. This was a listener pointing out, I don't remember this, but a listener saying that apparently this same chant, F the Mormons, broke out at a BYU Providence game last year and at USC a few years ago. I don't remember either of those, but throwing that out there. But here's where things kind of got even more interesting today. So Colorado head coach Deon Sanders issued his own apology and said, that this is that students. He said the students of Colorado should be better than this. He basically said, if you were a student in the student section chanting "F the Mormons" during Saturday night's game, you disrespected your own school. You disrespected this team, Sanders said. He was very angry when he spoke Saturday night. It was Saturday night when he spoke. Today, though, he said something that stirred up a firestorm online. He said, so Colorado Athletics Director Rick George had said, again, the Salt Lake Tribune with all the deep quotes here, he said, so Deon Sanders said, referencing Colorado Athletics Director Rick George, he said, Rick might not want me to mention this, but I know there was an incident at the conclusion of the game. On behalf of the athletic department, on behalf of Colorado University, we'd like to apologize to our opponent. That was Saturday night. And he said, this isn't indicative of who we are. Our fans, our student body are phenomenal. The people who did this, not so. So it was pretty clear, and Sanders was praised for that. So today, what did he say to get in trouble? He basically said, after the $50,000 fine was announced, he said, I don't know that it's fair to be fining schools and maligning the teams of those schools for what a bunch of students decided to do. Students that, Sanders said, quote, were probably just drunk or high. And at first I chuckled and thought, oh, you are going to hear it from this one, not just online. You're going to hear it from your bosses. You're going to hear it from your fellow coaches. You don't say that, but then he's got a point, at least to the extent that we should talk about that. Is it fair to fine a university for something? Is it fair? Say something like this happens at a BYU game. Some team comes to town, some offensive slur with bigotry and discrimination wrapped into it is chanted by enough students in the student section that it gets heard and filmed and posted online and becomes a deal. Is it fair to hold Utah State University and USU's athletics department responsible for that? Well, Deon Sanders is saying no. He was very clear Saturday night. He said whoever chanted that does not represent this school or this team and should be ashamed of themselves. He praised the Big 12 today for condemning the act with the statement, and again, even said that they're gladly going to pay the fine. But he just offered that little bit because he was talking about, okay, so we've been fined and reprimanded, but what do we do now? Sanders said. What do you expect the school to do to prevent this in the future. We can't prevent this in the future. We can discourage it. We can condemn those who partake in discriminatory or bigotous behavior at a game and disrespect the school or their own school that way, but we can't stop it. We have no control over that. He's got a point. The problem is when something like this happens, the schools have to condemn it. They have to say this isn't us. This isn't reflective of our student body. But if it's coming from the student section, But then, devil's advocate to my own point there, Deon Sanders has a point. How can a school control that? Sanders quote again, he said, "I don't know that it's fair to hold a school responsible to this extent," mentioning the $50,000 fine, for something they can't control. A school can't control a bunch of students who were, quote, probably drunk and high at the time. And I can't disagree. I think maybe the fine is still appropriate because it forces the school to take action, or the threat of a fine forces the school. So they won't issue a statement and then just kind of sit back. They'll go so far as to, so maybe you sit down with your whatever your school's that school's version of USU's herd is, and you say, look, folks, can't be doing this at games. You make us look dumb. You're going to get us fined. Just be mature enough, at least, because nobody's fully mature in the crowd at a football game. We know that. But I don't know. I thought about this all day since I read the article this morning. Deon Sanders has a point. It might not be fair to hold schools accountable for what students chant or do during the game, even if they're sitting in the student section. We'll be back right after this.
Here's what some of our patients have to say about how Red River has changed their lives.
So before I started at Red River, I was having a lot of stomach pain. I was overweight, severe anxiety. I had been to multiple doctors. We had done tests and no one could find anything that was wrong. And then a friend mentioned Red River and I went and saw him, and it has changed my whole life. I'm sleeping through the night. I have energy for my kids. I've lost 30 pounds. No more stomach pains. I just feel really good.
Our goal is to focus on imbalances that are driving your condition or symptoms, not just give you Band-Aid answers. So when a patient comes to our office, we'll sit down with them extensively and go over their blood work to find out the underlying imbalances driving their symptoms.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER. with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
Estate plan? This is Jace Allen, Northern Utah's estate planning attorney. At Allen Law Office, wills and trusts are what we do. If you've been putting it off, now is the time to get it done. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones, protect your legacy, protect your assets. Start today at cashlegal.com or just search Allen Law Office. Wills and trusts are what we do. Allen Law Office.
It's time to make the outdoor living improvements you've talked about. Cast-A-Lite in Logan has everything you need to turn your backyard get-together into a backyard event. If you need pavers for a walkway, a retaining wall for your garden, or to reshape a flower bed, or a fire pit to roast marshmallows, think Cast-A-Lite. Their experts will reduce your DIY stress for brick, block, rock, paver, and tile. Go where the pros go. Online at castalite.com.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello?
Pam, I understand you've been a nurse for quite some time.
I do pediatrics, but med-surg, we're all combined units.
Oh, okay. Well, someone reached out to us saying that you not only have a master's degree in nursing, but a master's degree in love and compassion. And so we've got a $40 gift card we'd like to give you to Firehouse Subs for being such a huge impact on people in our community.
Oh, that's nice.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU.
Just a reminder, you've got just a small window of time to weigh in on Utah's court-ordered redistricting process. New maps, 6, have been proposed and posted online. You can see them at le.utah.gov. And Utah lawmakers will be mulling these maps in light of guidance from the court as well that said you can't ignore voters when they created an independent redistricting process. You got to draw new maps for the congressional districts at least. And so there are some Better Boundaries, the group behind the original ballot initiative, released a scorecard of the maps as well, which is useful. Again, they're saying, that they're doing this to help. 5 maps drawn by Republicans, one by and their consultant that they hired, Sean Trende of Real Clear Politics, and one map drawn by Democrats and their expert, Daniel Magleby, a professor from SUNY Binghamton in New York, who specializes in redistricting. And so you can go to the redistricting website, that's redistricting.utah.gov, and then click on the 2025 redistricting button there, and you'll see the maps, and then basically you go down and you have an opportunity to comment on each map. And there are dozens proposed if you want to see the others. That when you go to citygate.utahledge.gov, I would stick to the 5 or to the 6 that are going to possibly be a part of the end result. And so, again, that is redistricting.utah.gov, where you can do that. But just to let you know, so the submission started on September 17th, which is also when the public window opened. And so you basically have until this Friday to get a public comment in. And your public comment does weigh. It's not going to be ignored. So do that again at redistricting.utah.gov and make sure your voice is heard. I hope you join us tomorrow on the show. We'll be talking a little bit more about the future of nuclear in Utah. Some additional details from Governor Cox's office on this. We'll put it this way, getting very serious about it. But what does that mean for cities like Logan or any city here in northern Utah?